Hello, seamless knitting technology will be presented in this lesson. Using the seamless knitting technology, whole garment is knitted during one knitting process. In such case, sewing operations are neither unnecessary or necessary only a few. It means that technological process is very short as compared to the traditional garment production, when pieces are cut out of the fabric and sewn together into the garment. Also, it is very important that seamless technology requires much less labor force, because in garment production the most labor force is used not for knitting but sewing. Even more, seamless knitting creates very low amount of waste, only up to 3% and usually even less. Seamless knits are knitted to a particular shape and size of a garment. It can be socks, gloves, scarves, skirts, underwear, shirts, pullovers, and so on. Seamless knitting technology requires fully automated computer-controlled knitting machines. Shape of the seamless garment knitted on a circular knitting machine can be changed by changing loop density in particular places or by changing knitting pattern. For example, rib pattern makes knit narrower, whereas tuck stitch or lace pattern makes knit broader. However, one knitting machine cannot be used for knitting of all size scale products. Circular knitting machines with different diameters of cylinder are required. The most common seamless knitted products is all assortment of socks and pantyhose. Socks with open toes require sewing operation to close the toe, and after that also final finishing. Socks with toes closed during the knitting process requires only final finishing after knitting, such as formation and stabilization. This last mentioned variant of manufacturing is shorter than the previous. A sewing operation takes time, and moreover, it usually requires additional turning out to the left and later on to the right side. Shape and size of the seamless garment knitted on a flat knitting machine can be changed by changing number of knitting needles, transferring loops from needles to needles, as well as by changing knitting pattern. Garments of different size can be knitted on the same knitting machine. The whole garment can be knitted without any seams, and it generates up to 1% waste, mostly yarn ends. In the presented example, knitting of the pullover starts from the bottom edge and wristbands using 3 separate yarn feeders. The shape of the pullover is got by changing number of knitting needles and transferring loops from needles to needles. The process is fully automated. Fully fashioned garment can be knitted on knitting machines which have possibility to take up the first courses automatically. To simplify the take-up process, seamless garments can be knitted pieced together as it is shown in this slide. Knitting of scarves by using flat form knitting machine also can be attributed to the seamless knitting technology. Seamless knits can be produced by using both flat and circular weft and warp knitting machines. In this slide, 2 main producers of flat knitting machines for whole garment knitting are presented. In this slide, automatic small diameter circular knitting machine are presented. To conclude, seamless knitted garments can be knitted on both circular and flat knitting machines that must be fully automated and computer controlled. This knitting technology generates extremely low amount of waste, manufacturing process is very short, and labor force required is minimal. Thank you for your attention.